Okay, folks, just about ready to go here, so just give me a second. I just want to make sure everything is all set up. You do these live streams, a lot of buttons I got to push, and I got to push them in the right order. Hi, everybody. It's Monday. Joe Cioffi here. Going to talk today about the tropics, which are looking to get rather active. We have Tropical Storm Gert that continues to organize. Looks like the outflow has been expanding on the satellite loops that I've looked at today. And I wouldn't be surprised if this winds up eventually getting at least to strong tropical storm strength or even minimal hurricane over the next 2 days. But it is an out-to-sea adventure for this one between North Carolina and Bermuda. It'll pass there and then go northeast. Probably will kick up the surf in the mid-Atlantic and northeast for a couple of days later this week. But other than that, no other impact. We have this broad low pressure / tropical wave that's off the African coast, and weather models were particularly bullish with the development with this. The European, to me, is the one to pay attention to because that has been the one that has probably been the most consistent so far in this tropical season. And, it has not been like the others where they have spun up everything that moves. The European has been very selective in doing that. And then when it does, it seems to be on the ball. So we're going to stick with that model. The GFS, in all its silliness, did what it did overnight on the 0Z run and spun up the system and then takes it up the East Coast. And then the 6Z run, I nearly fell on the floor laughing because it has nothing. It doesn't do anything at all. You can barely find it. And I don't, this is the game that you play in the long range, and this is why you can't really get wrapped up, as I've said many times. Do not get wrapped up in what the models do specifically from run to run. The important thing is to recognize the overall pattern. I think the European has the right idea, and you'll see it shortly. There's going to be a narrow ridge across the Atlantic back into the Gulf states that's east-west, almost shaped like a gigantic hot dog. And to the north of that, there'll be a jet stream flowing west to east across the northern part of the United States. The ridge is going to control the ultimate path of whatever forms down in the tropics. And I think that it is going to wind up being more to the west than perhaps what the other models are saying. I think the European may have the right idea here in taking the weather systems more westerly rather than going north of the islands. But you know what? We're going to watch how it evolves. I'll chat with you guys here, but I'm not going to be able to come back for a live chat at the end. So here's the video. Here's the weather part of our program, and enjoy. So hang on one second while I switch over to that. Let's start tonight by looking at the tropics. We have Tropical Storm Gert sitting northeast of the Bahamas, and it was upgraded to a tropical storm late this afternoon. You can see it here, a pretty well-defined system, banding showing up in the cloud structure. Looks like a pretty solid core of convection near where the circulation center is. We saw during the day today how the thunderstorm activity began to increase. Let's start tonight by looking at the tropics. We have Okay, folks, sorry about that. Major screw up here. Hang on one second, okay? So just bear with the with what's going on. All right, just so hang on. I got to do a couple. this is the current satellite view. Remember, it's about clouds. It's not necessarily about rain. And if you are not in an area where skies are clear, you have, of course, the risk that one little cloud could come over the sun at the point of the eclipse, and your wait of many years will continue. And you'll have to either wait for the next one, or perhaps, depending on where you are, this might be your only shot. But in case you haven't been to this website, it's very good. You can actually zoom in on the path of totality. So if we looked at today, here's the range of where the total, where you would see the total eclipse, and you can also see where the clouds are, at least this morning, assuming that this is where, if it were occurring right at the moment. So this will come in pretty handy, the actual day of the eclipse, for you to use. So you can at least get a good view of where the clouds are relative to the path of totality. Now, let's jump to the GFS model for next Monday. This is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think, this is precipitation, the area shaded in green. My guess is that at least in the areas to the east of the Mississippi, you're going to have some cloud issues in here. Now, there might be a pocket of clear skies. If this works out with the way the weather pattern is shaping up, that it would be clear. A portion of southeastern Canada and New England would be in the clear, but they're not in the path of totality. And much of the west now is indicated to be clear, including the Pacific Northwest, except for areas where we have issues with diurnal showers and thunderstorms. But something, it's early enough in the day in the west that those should be few and far between. So this is how it looks at the moment. If you're, say, east of Kansas City down to the southeast coast, there's going to be risk. And then on up into the mid-Atlantic states, and then back over into the western Great Lakes. This has been kind of morphing and changing over the last few days. It might morph a little bit more, but I'm thinking that as we get closer, we'll probably see, the changes grow less and less. And with respect to the upper air, and also with respect to clouds, we would probably look for little upper air disturbances that might be might produce some cloud issues. And you can see, if you pick one out over here, there looks like there's a weak one. There isn't too much happening anywhere else. As a trough that's off the west coast, so there might be some clouds with that. And right along the immediate west coast, and because of the time of day, there's likely to be some low clouds and some fog. So just bear that in mind going forward, and whatever your plans happen to be for that particular day. And we'll keep you updated here and also on my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and we'll let you know if there's going to be any important changes. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what's going on in the tropics. We have Tropical Storm Gert that is moving north-northwest to north slowly at about 10 miles an hour. It's a little bit on the sheared side, but on the whole, it's not a bad-looking tropical storm. It's now north of 30 degrees north, and there's the coast of the Carolinas, and here's Bermuda. So it looks like it's going to wind up passing midway between those two areas, and it's got a shot to become a minimal hurricane. It has time, and it has relatively favorable conditions and warm water to work with. So I think this could still wind up reaching minimal hurricane strength as it moves out to the northeast, and that may eventually kick up the ocean up along the mid-Atlantic and northeast coast. But that's about it in terms of its impact. And you can see on the wider view, it's got a pretty good outflow, and it looks like that outflow is expanding today. So I think we may see some strengthening as it moves on up to the northeast. In the meantime, we have this rather impressive looking tropical wave combined with a low pressure area here. You can see there's sort of a swirl of low clouds. So this very broad area exists in the tropical Atlantic right out in here, and it's moving westward. And I think that there's a pretty good chance that this thing is going to wind up developing as well as it moves westward. And the European model with this has been showing it consistently from run to run. We're going to start with today, and let me just zero up. So it's very broad. There's a low out on the eastern end of that envelope of clouds. There's another low south of the Cape Verde Islands, and gradually one low takes over, and the European takes that and starts to move it westward. Here is another one that comes off the African coast later this week. And the European takes it over the northern Leeward Islands, probably as a tropical storm, takes it over the island of Hispaniola and over Cuba. So it has a land route for the most part all the way through. And then when it starts to get into western Cuba, back out slightly over open water, conditions are less unfavorable due to the terrain, and they're probably going to be favorable in terms of conditions aloft. So it does develop this eventually into a hurricane once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, assuming that that's where it goes. And I have to tell you, based on the fact that the way the weather systems have behaved coming out of the tropics this season, that further southwestward track makes more sense because it keeps it weaker. And by the way, that next system that moves off, the European, strengthens that into a hurricane as it takes it pretty much on an open ocean route. There's Bermuda, and here at this point, the European has a hurricane. So it actually has two hurricanes here, if you want to believe it. And it looks like maybe another system here is coming out. The map that we're showing you here is a surface map, and it's also showing you in the colors where pressures are abnormally above normal or abnormally below normal. And you can see throughout much of the tropical Atlantic, we are seeing below to much below normal pressures. So this is, usually a sign when you get into an active period. If we were to see above normal pressures here, you wouldn't see much tropical development. But we're seeing a large area in almost all of the tropics, everywhere south of 35 degrees north is shown to have below normal pressure. So I would suspect that the European is signaling that we are going into an active period here with regards to the tropics. Now, yesterday we mentioned the fact that a lot of the key to this going forward is going to be this upper ridge, that basically is narrow upper air ridge or high pressure that covers the tropics, that extends from about 35 degrees north southward to about 20 degrees north. It's an east-west high. So these systems, again, at least the lead system, is likely to have a more of a westward trajectory. The main jet stream is running well to the north. You have an upper low sitting over Newfoundland, another one that's sitting off the coast of England. So you have as you have this narrow east-west jet that goes for thousands of miles, you also basically have since you have a narrow ridge that goes thousands of miles, you basically also have the corresponding narrow jet stream that goes west to east for thousands of miles. And this is something that is not going to be conducive to storms really affecting the East Coast. In fact, if you go into next weekend, we have another trough that's coming into the east. The trough lifts out, and then at the end of the period, you still have this jet here up to the north. So I really feel fairly confident that this first system is going to take more of a southern track. As far as the second one, that remains to be seen. Let's see what happens going forward with regards to that. Now let me switch to. Let me get this off. We'll go to the water vapor imagery here. And, we've been talking about the fact that there's, with all the issues with regards to the dry air and the upper lows that have been sitting out in the tropical Atlantic, this upper low is now, pretty far up to the northeast. And remember, we're going way up into the atmosphere. The other thing is that we have, been talking about this area of dry air. That has actually kind of weakened a bit in the last 24 hours. So it looks like if that trend continues, it would certainly favor this system to develop. And you can see, by the way, you've got this, lead extension of convection. You've got this other one that's out to the east. So it's a very, rather broad, elongated system here. They may very well even be two separate systems, two separate entities to some respect. And of course, here we have Tropical Storm Gert, which is sitting in its own little world. It's got that narrow area of dry air to the north that it's dealing with that is probably slow. It's slowing the strengthening down, but it's not impeding it by too much. Model track guidance from the Hurricane Center. This is we just got the new one here, and you can see there's not many they're not running many models on this. We've only got 3 at the moment, and actually 2 of them take it north of the islands, and 1 kind of arcs it back westward. So there really isn't too much with respect to this that we can draw many conclusions on these tropical systems. All right, so let's take a look fast at what we can expect for regular weather. And by the way, the GFS, I didn't really look. Let's look at it now. Here's what it does with the tropicals, the first tropical system from last night's run. All right, so it's back to this, idea. It wants to fling it up the East Coast. It loves to fling weather systems up the East Coast. Okay, and the next run, which is kind of funny, you can't find it. In fact, when you look at the whole tropical Atlantic with the GFS, it has absolutely nothing. It went from showing, Category 3 plus hurricane to absolutely nothing. So you can see how wonderfully reliable this model is from run to run. So I'm going to just focus on the 6Z, and now we're at Tropical Storm Gert. So we're at today. In the east, we're going to have another reasonably nice day. There's an upper air disturbance that's coming down through eastern Canada, right in here with a little weak front, and that probably might suggest the chance for some severe weather on Tuesday for parts of northern New England and northeastern New York. You can see where the Storm Prediction Center has drawn this. And then Wednesday looks to be like it could be a pretty hot day here in the northeast with a bit of a west-northwest wind. Temperatures will probably make it up to about 90. There's a weak little front here that's going to try and push through Wednesday afternoon. So Thursday will be a little cooler with a bit of an onshore flow. Here's the next warm front, cold front combination that moves on through. You can see out in the west, the weather's relatively calm. And then going into next weekend, improving weather conditions with a little high coming down from the north. So we'll have that one hot day this week, and then I think after that we'll be okay. And then as far as the long range is concerned, it's almost pointless to go out much beyond day 7 or 8 because we're going to see how those tropical systems impact the atmosphere going forward. All right, folks, kind of limited on time today, so I'm going to cut it right here. There's more eclipse information and more on tropics at meteorologistjoecioffi.com. There'll be posts up there throughout the day, so do check those out. And Angry Ben has his view of the impact of the eclipse for New York City at nycweathernow.com. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, thank you for being here. If you would like, subscribe, and make sure the notifications are turned on so when these live streams happen, you will get them. If you're watching me from Facebook, thank you as always for being here. And of course, you can also catch the live streams on YouTube if you miss them on Facebook. Have a great day, everybody. We will talk to you possibly tonight. I may have time to do a live stream tonight. So we'll update you on this later on. I'll schedule it up on the board. You'll see what time the live stream, what time it may possibly happen. But I'm thinking it'll be after 11 o'clock Eastern time. All right, everybody. I just wanted to apologize for the mess at the beginning. I just, this is what happens when you have a lot to do. Again, I just want to emphasize with respect to what weather models are doing. Try and look at my approach as the way I look at these weather models. It's like a journey, and every day, you get 4 model runs of the GFS and 2 of the European. So each one of those is a journey and an adventure, and it's going to take you in all sorts of different directions. Strength of ridges and troughs and where they are going to be key to the weather forecast going forward, no matter what we're dealing with, whether it's a calm weather pattern or an active weather pattern. Do not get wrapped up in what the models do with respect to tropical systems on every run. Try and get a flavor of the general trend. And also try and remember what's happened so far and how it's happened. We've had 3 tropical systems essentially come out of the tropical Atlantic and south of 20 North. Franklin wound up moving into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. There seems to be a large westerly component to the motion this year, to the movement and track with these systems. There doesn't seem to be a lot of northward component. It took this last tropical wave that became Tropical Storm Gert a long, long time to get from the African coast to where it is now. And that might be the exception so far. I'm sure there'll be others that'll track north of the islands, but let's just see how the models play this out over the next few days. Strength of ridge, the depths of the troughs, they're all going to be very important going forward. And we'll update you tonight. I think I could be able to do a live stream tonight, maybe around 11 o'clock Eastern time if I'm organized and I get my act together. And hopefully this morning is not an example of what I wind up doing for tonight. All right, folks, have a great day, and we'll see you later.